I've titled my talk Design for Planetary Health, and the subtitle was The Case for Human Ecological Thinking in Architecture, Design and Planning. To get us started on this conversation, I think it's really important that we share an understanding of what's being called the Anthropocene, this new geological epoch that we've entered, in which, as a collective of humans around the world, we're changing natural systems to such an extent that we'll see it in the fossil record. And this is a short video, just 3 minutes. I think, tells that story quite effectively. So let's listen to that together. We might get the lights turned down so that we can experience it fully.
This is the story of how one species changed a planet. The latest chapter of our story begins in England 250 years ago. Fueled by coal, then oil, several brilliant inventions appeared. They ignited the Industrial Revolution, which spread like wildfire through Europe, North America, Japan, then elsewhere. The great railways, then cars and highways, connected people across the globe. Medical discoveries saved millions of lives. New artificial fertilizers meant we could feed more people. Population rose rapidly. But this was nothing compared with what was to come. The 1950s marked the beginning of the Great Acceleration. Globalization, marketing, tourism, and huge investments helped fuel enormous growth. People swarmed to cities, which became even more powerful engines of creativity. In a single lifetime, the well-being of millions has improved beyond measure. Health, wealth, security, longevity, never have so many had so much. Yet 1 billion are malnourished. In a single lifetime, we have grown into a phenomenal global force. We move more sediment and rock annually than all natural processes, such as erosion and rivers. We manage 3/4 of all land outside the ice sheets. Greenhouse gas levels this high have not been seen for over 1 million years. Temperatures are increasing. We have made a hole in the ozone layer. We are losing biodiversity. Many of the world's deltas are sinking due to damming, mining, and other causes. Sea level is rising. Ocean acidification is a real threat. We are altering Earth's natural cycles. We have entered the Anthropocene, a new geological epoch dominated by humanity. This relentless pressure on our planet risks unprecedented destabilization. But our creativity, energy, and industry offer hope. We have shaped our past. We are shaping our present. We can shape our future. You and I are part of this story. We are the first generation to realize this new responsibility. As the population grows to 9 billion, we must find a safe operating space for humanity, for the sake of future generations. Welcome to the Anthropocene.
So just as the credits go up there, I'll tell you a little bit about that video. It was developed by the International Geosphere Biosphere Program, which is hosted by the Swedish Academy of Science, and it was shown to open the Rio Plus 20 conference back in 2012. And I think it makes a compelling story about the need for change and the need for fresh thinking. And it also, I think, causes us to reflect on design. And if we think back through that couple of hundred years with the Industrial Revolution, all of the advances, in some ways, design has been part of the problem, and we need to own up to that and look ahead and focus on how design can be a force for good in the future. That understanding of the Anthropocene as something that we all need to confront together was the basis for a piece of work that I was part of while I was based with the UN. And this was a commission on planetary health that was hosted by The Lancet, the leading medical journal in the world, and the Rockefeller Foundation provided the funding. The idea for the commission came from a meeting the Rockefeller Foundation convened in China in 2013, and they were reflecting on their contribution to health around the world in their first 100 years. You may know that Rockefeller Foundation principally funds around human health and well-being and urbanisation. And the key message coming out of that meeting in China was that great biomedical advances, many of them reflected in that video, improved understanding of the social foundations of health, the idea of social determinants of health, but seemingly we have almost forgotten that our health, our well-being, our survival entirely depends on the health of natural systems. That was the basis of this commission. The title of the report that we published in 2015 was Safeguarding Human Health in this Anthropocene Epoch. So safeguarding the health of us in the room, our families, our communities around the world, but also thinking ahead to future generations. The commissioners came from a mix of backgrounds, including experts on the built environment, and you'll see at the bottom there that very much this was a review of current understanding. It was a literature review with key recommendations and built on previous work, including the Brundtland Commission, of course, remembering that Dr. Brundtland was a medical doctor before she was Prime Minister of Norway and went on to chair that commission. The work of the IPCC, including looking at the health impacts of climate change, the work of the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, when Kofi Annan was leading the UN, really improved understanding of the value of nature for health and well-being, the whole idea of services from nature for people. The One Health movement, connecting human and animal health, eco-health, understanding the importance of ecosystems for health, the current work of the Convention on Biological Diversity on that nexus between biodiversity and human health and well-being. And notably here at the bottom of the slide, a very eminent Australian epidemiologist, Tony McMichael, who first sounded the alarm about the health impacts of climate change more than 25 years ago with his book, Planetary Overload. So what is planetary health? Put simply, planetary health, what my chair is, the first in the world, hopefully not the last chair in the world on this theme, it's about the health of human civilization and the state of the natural systems on which it depends. Now, if we draw the historical lens back, of course, on my field, medicine, one important figure is Hippocrates, more than 2,000 years ago in ancient Greece. And this was one of Hippocrates' books, On Airs, Waters and Places. So more than 2,000 years ago, well before contemporary biomedical advances, he was thinking ecologically about the health of his patients. He was talking to them about the way they lived, the places they lived, and reflecting on these links between health and the environment. As we began today, we acknowledged the traditional custodians of this place. And all Indigenous cultures have this understanding of the connections between human health and the health of natural systems embedded in their spiritual understanding, in their cultural practices. I happen to be of Maori background, from the south of New Zealand, Ngāi Tahu Maori and Scottish, and Waiora. I think I've managed to somehow turn that off. I don't know what I touched there. I don't know whether somebody can help me get that back up. But so Waiora is a Maori word for well-being, and it's a composite word that includes a focus on the natural environment. Waiora. So this is really a message that we can draw that historical lens back to all spiritual understandings in Indigenous cultures, and we should remember that while planetary health is a new term in an institution like the University of Sydney and elsewhere, these ideas go back to all human civilizations. And as we fast forward to the Romans making engineering feats to bring clean water into cities, and the innovations in England at the time of that Industrial Revolution to protect health, because people's health was being so badly affected by that rapid pace of industrialisation a couple of hundred years ago in England, new design approaches to housing, to sanitation, to water supplies. And now, of course, we confront this more broadly in our region, in China and elsewhere. And the idea of garden cities really emerged from these concerns a couple of centuries ago. Ebenezer Howard, I expect others will refer to him this morning, the vision of a garden city as a healthy ideal. So what did we find in that commission? Well, we found that by almost any measure, the human population is healthier now than ever before. And here World Bank data from 1960 on the left through to 2010, and that black line in the middle showing that human life expectancy has been increasing on average around the world through this phase. And you can see all those coloured lines, that it's been increasing in all regions. Clearly still gross inequity in South Central and West Asia and Africa, but an important message that health is improving around the world. But in achieving those health gains, we've exploited the planet at an unprecedented rate. Whether we think about escalating carbon dioxide emissions, ocean acidification, energy use, global deforestation, water use, fertiliser use, the things referred to in that video, we have got a set of very important problems. But to fast forward, because I'm not giving a keynote today, just a brief intervention, we can meet these challenges. In many ways, we know enough to act. It's really about applying what we know and learning as we go. And in relation to cities, a range of options to develop sustainable and healthy cities, whether it's active travel and public transport, as referred to by Robin, reducing fine particulate air pollution, provision of green spaces and their relevance to biodiversity, the heat island, mental health benefits, watershed conservation, access to healthy food, resilience to floods, storms and droughts. We know a lot. We know that we need to change our economy to transition to a circular economy, moving from a high consumption focus to a focus on reuse, recycling and repair, so that we don't even talk about waste anymore. It's all a resource. We need to rethink the way we develop our economy. Here's a link to the Commission report and a range of infographics and videos and other things. So I guess to sharpen my focus of my message today, the idea of planetary health has been picked up by UNDP in New York as an integrative approach to the implementation of the 17 SDGs. And the reason they're interested in planetary health is to help us avoid going down 17 different silos of intervention with those goals. The importance of human ecological thinking. Stephen BOYDEN, very eminent human ecologist, this is one of his books, The Biology of Civilization, understanding that human culture, design being part of that human culture, is now a force in nature in this Anthropocene. And here, difficult for you to read at the back, I understand. I'll just briefly walk you through this. Don't bother to read every word. But we need a way of thinking in the whole. The importance of holism has already been highlighted here. So how should we think about the way the world works? Well, we certainly need to acknowledge that human culture is a foundation for the challenges we face. So by that, we mean there in that first box, our worldview, what we know about the world, what we believe and what we prioritise. This will affect the way we organise ourselves, the economic system we choose, the regulations we put in place to govern ourselves, the education systems we have. Those cultural options will ultimately affect a range of biophysical things. We call them variables in a university, in a research sense. The human population, the numbers of people, the densities, the groupings in our cities, the things that those people are doing together collectively, the human activities, the fuels we're using, what we're manufacturing, how we're farming, the human activities that we do at the individual level, our lifestyles, our livelihoods, the way we travel, and the things we make, the things we design, whether they're buildings, roads, vehicles, machines, vegetable gardens. And then the biophysical environment is profoundly important here to remember that all of this is nested within the biosphere, with its physical elements, the atmosphere, the ocean, the clay and rocks, and the living elements, the plants, the other animals other than humans, of course, and microorganisms. And the bottom line of this understanding of the system is that the health of humans, of all other animals and natural systems, are emergent properties from the way this system works. And how can design shape the way this system works is a key question for us in this symposium. Stephen BOYDEN's work boils down to this understanding that all of those human activities that were outlined in that previous slide have the potential to influence our own health, the health of people through direct and indirect pathways, as well as the health of natural systems. And there are feedbacks in this, as you can see from those arrows in both directions. And when we think about design, when we put the design lens on that understanding, design practice has the potential to shape both human health and the health of natural systems because it shapes those very human activities. So the essence of design for the Anthropocene, design in this Anthropocene, design and the Anthropocene, if we think about the history, how design contributed to the Anthropocene, but also how design might get us out of some of these challenges we face. This integrative thinking is critical. And last two quick slides, a reminder, as much for myself as for all in the room, we always need to remember that all humans share a set of universal health needs and that there are two broad categories of these needs. Much of the focus in research in a university like this tends to be on human biophysical needs. The need for clean air, clean water, natural diet, absence of harmful levels of radiation, a healthy microbiome, protection from extremes of climate, a natural amount of physical activity, sleep, importantly in the city. But we sometimes overlook our psychosocial needs, the need for an emotional support network, the experience of conviviality in daily life, opportunities for cooperation, an interesting environment, aesthetically pleasing environment, opportunities for creative behaviour, for learning, recreation, spontaneity, variety in daily experience, an absence of alienation and deprivation, and a sense of belonging, purpose, and love. And design has a role in delivering all of these needs for all people. I'm going to finish with this infographic, which is an infographic we're using on the campus as I'm engaging with Robin in this faculty, with Martin, with Nicole, with others here in this faculty and beyond. Planetary health is really about the urgent need for a cultural transformation. It's about safeguarding the health and well-being of current and future generations through good stewardship of Earth's natural systems and by rethinking the way we feed, move, house, power, and care for the world. So that triangle that I showed you before, central in this infographic, everything that we are doing, humans on Earth, has the potential for impacts on our own health and the health of natural systems. How do we govern ourselves? How do we manage ourselves to leave no one behind? Bringing that equity perspective in the language of the UN. What do we value? What are we learning about in our universities and elsewhere? How do we regulate human behaviour? And what's the economic system that we're choosing? And we've highlighted 5 big pathways here because they're big industrial sectors and there's huge opportunities for design in these sectors. How we feed the world, how we move the world, how we house the world, how we power the world, and importantly, how we care for the world. But the bottom line in the infographic is that our future collectively entirely depends on the health of the natural world, and we must keep reminding ourselves of that. So thanks very much.